I certainly don't need to tell you that these are very dangerous times because we face terrorism right here. Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson going on the record just moments after a terrorism briefing in front of the House Homeland Security Committee. Mr. Secretary, you've just testified before the committee. Tell me, what is the state of alert? Has it gotten worse since last time you've testified, or has it gotten better, or is it pretty much the same?
Well, Greta, I always hesitate characterizations of worse, better.
How's it different?
The global terrorist threat is more decentralized, more complicated, and in many respects harder to detect because it involves use of the internet. It involves terrorist-inspired attacks versus terrorist-directed attacks. It's no longer as simple as something that is directed from overseas, where you have an operative who comes here, who's exported here, who's recruited overseas, trained overseas. Now we have to be concerned about the homegrown terrorist who is inspired by something he sees on the internet. And so Director Comey and I and Nick Rasmussen of the NCTC just spent the last 2.5 hours talking about this current environment, which involves the potential for that type of actor in places where you cannot always predict, like Chattanooga, Tennessee, or Garland City, Texas, along with the places we're traditionally concerned about, like New York. And so in that respect, it's a new world, and we've got to deliver a whole-of-government effort to that, to dealing with that kind of challenge.
Do you have what you need? I mean, I realize that this is a very fluid situation and you don't get much notice on terrorism, but do you have the resources, or is there something you really need from the American taxpayers from Congress?
Yes.
What do you need? Tell us what you need.
1, 2, and 3. Repeal sequestration, repeal sequestration, and repeal sequestration. I cannot do for the American public what they need for Homeland Security with a sequestered budget. Right now, we're headed to reverting back to sequestration. And so border security, aviation security, maritime security, counterterrorism, cybersecurity are not free, and I cannot deliver all those things on a sequestered budget. That's what I keep stressing. Homeland Security is part of national security. Homeland Security is part of protecting the American public. And so it is fundamental that the Congress gives me what I need to protect the American people. That means repeal sequestration.
What's the biggest change in your job since you started?
I'm a lot older.
I mean, have the threats changed at all, or the sophistication of the threats, or or all of it?
The evolution is becoming more and more clear every day. We've evolved from simply worrying about an underwear bomber type attack, where you have a guy who comes from overseas, who's trained overseas at a camp, who's been directed overseas, and then tries to blow something up here over the homeland, to the type of situation where there's a guy who's here, he's lived here, he might have even been born here, who's inspired by something he sees on social media, which is really effective and really slick, and he decides to take up arms and commit an act of violence here. And you look at the recent trends, you look at Ottawa, you look at what could have happened in Garland City, you look at Chattanooga, you look at the Charlie Hebdo attack in Paris, and you see this new trend in the type of threat that we face, which is requiring a different type of vigilance.
And I assume that you endorse the if you see something, say something.
See something, say something.
Right.
Is the message delivered by the Department of Homeland Security.
With the problem, though, is that some people don't want to be doing anything like profiling. They want to be politically correct. I mean, there's that sort of delicate balance. Some people don't want to say something.
Homeland Security is a balance. You are exactly right. It's a balance between vigilance and not compromising our values. We don't want to make people suspicious of each other because of who they are, what they look like, how they dress. But it means vigilance. It means that if you see a suspicious package, you should say something about it. You should call somebody. If you see somebody engaging in suspicious behavior, you should do something about it, say something about it. And so that's what we mean by that campaign. It's vigilance and awareness.
The last time you and I spoke was at the Law Enforcement Memorial here in Washington, D.C., where there were over 20,000 names etched in the wall of fallen officers. Last night, a police officer shot and killed in New York. Your thoughts?
Regrettably, since the last time you and I met, there have been more law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty. And since we last met, I have decided to take on the practice of writing personally to the police chief of each department where somebody's killed. And that means I'm writing a lot of letters. It means I'm very cognizant of, much more than I used to be, how many of our law enforcement personnel are killed in the line of duty on a regular basis, and it's really unfortunate. And I hope we turn that tide.
Is there, a lot of police officers think there's a war on police. Do you think that there is sort of a general anti-police among some?
Well, I sure hope not. And the policeman is someone who serves the community. That's the nature of what they do, to serve and protect. So many places I've been, the community is appreciative of the good work the police do on a daily basis. I happen to believe that is the prevailing sentiment in our country, and I believe that's going to continue.
Mr. Secretary, thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Greta.
Thanks a lot.